Welcome to Food for the Soul presents The Gumbo Mix, the radio version, and intimate conversations with your girl, Talitha Kume, on Fishbowl Radio, The Blue Bowl, and we are live on our FB page, Food for the Soul presents, so make sure you guys join us. We've got a great show for you tonight, so stay tuned in, y'all, and we will be right back. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in this evening. I always say this afternoon because I see the sunlight and I still think that it's daytime, but it's evening. To Food for the Soul presents The Gumbo Mix with I am Talitha Kume and intimate conversations here on Fishbowl Radio, The Blue Bowl, and we are live on our FB page, Food for the Soul presents. If you guys haven't already, go like our page, follow us on Instagram, please, and subscribe to our YouTube stations, Food for the Soul presents and Intimate Conversations. And remember, if you would like to be a part of our conversation, you can do so by calling in at 214-431-5062, and you can also comment on our Facebook page as well. And don't forget to hashtag us at hashtag Food for the Soul presents. I want to shout out my guest today. I'm joined in the studio tonight with my special guest speaker, preacher, the bridge builder, Mr. Chris Davis, and minister, business owner, my go-to for all of my video needs, and producer of my Intimate Conversations live show, Mr. Controversial himself, Cornelius Bacot, and that's the way I needed to introduce him. So if you guys would not mind, Chris first and then Cornelius, just tell us a little bit more about what you do.
Wow. So the first thing I do is I'm on your show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's what I do. Just a lover of all things, man. Father of boys. Just excited to be here.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
Well, I'm aspiring to be a man of the truth,
Yeah.
Trying to, first of all, adjust my life to righteousness and try to lead others to actually the right path to God and not just the knowingly path that comes across the pulpit. All the time, we learning things that's different in these days, so it's time to evolve, I guess.
And I am ready for the evolution. Do you understand what I'm talking about? And that was the reason why I had you guys on the show. So you guys, I want to get into it because we only have an hour, and these guys said they need way more time. So hopefully we'll be able to get a few nuggets in, and then if we have to do a part 2, I will absolutely invite them back. But this whole month is going to be dedicated to our men. So I'm calling it Let's Hear It for the Boys, because I just thought that I kind of like that title, so I named it that.
Yeah.
But yes, but tonight's show, we're asking the question of why men don't attend church, you guys. So first, let me read my statistics real quick, and then we're going to get into it, you guys. So found a couple of articles. I'll put them all together, but it says churches from Moscow to Melbourne to Minneapolis are asking, where are the men? Have you ever walked into a church and silently asked yourself, where are all the men? Although the majority of religious congregations in America identify their pastor or religious leader as a male, you're not imagining that there is a shortage of men in the pews. According to Kathy Grossum of USA Today, women outnumber men in attendance in every major Christian denomination, and they are 20% to 25% more likely to attend worship at least weekly. In the U.S. Congregational Life Survey, it revealed that an average American congregation is roughly 61% female and 39% male. No other religion suffers the enormous gender gaps that plague Christianity. And it's not just attendance where men trail women. Men are less likely to lead, they're less likely to volunteer, and they're less likely to give in church. They pray less, they share their faith less, and they read the Bible less. And this is according to this article. The men who do go to church seem passive and bored, and it's often impossible to get church-going men to do anything other than attend services. So it says the church's gender gap is often invisible because the top tier of church leadership is still heavily male. Over 90% of Protestant pastors and 100% of Catholic priests are male. But Leon Podles put it best. The modern church is an army of women led by a few male generals. Men need the church, but more importantly, the church needs men. The presence of enthusiastic men is one of the surest predictors of church health, growth, giving, and expansion. Meanwhile, a man shortage is a sure sign of congregational paralysis. I was trying to get that brain freeze. Paralysis and decline. Why does this matter? And what are the far-reaching consequences of a shortage of church men? Ross Sawyers, the pastor of 121 Community Church, answers this question in stark terms. He argues that families are 90% more likely to attend church if the man of the household attends. This means that with the majority of men, as significant as the one described by Grossman and the other article, the church risks losing the majority of its congregation, both men and female, over time, because the men are not attending church. So I just had to put all that out there, you guys. And I know you probably know the statistics, or you're in churches where you see the statistics. But Chris, I want to start with you, and then I want to start with Cornelius, and give me some reasons, because we're just going to kind of go for it. Why do you think men are not attending church?
So I think we have to kind of circle it back to how men are oriented, and then the messaging, right? Okay. So if you take it all the way back, men are typically functional, right? Women are typically relational, right? Okay. Generally, when there is an invitation to be a part of a church, right, it's an invitation to relationship. Okay. Right. So typically, if a man is hearing relational messaging versus functional messaging, it's not really going to be kind of jiving with his language, the way he's oriented. Okay. Now, if you're talking about helping him do something, right, then it's going to jive with his language. So, for instance, if you have a woman who is relational, and it's and the message is, come have a relationship with the church, come have a relationship with Jesus, that's her language, right? But if he's functional, right, then we have to put it in the context of function, do, produce. If the messaging is produce, then it's going to be relating to and him. Resonating with him. To the man. So I think that a lot of it. I mean, even when you in Protestant Christian churches, typically if you go to church and you hear an illustration, generally it's from a woman's perspective. If it's a relational illustration, it's about the men who ain't doing X, Y, Z. Okay. If it's Father's Day, generally, even if you're a good man and you're a present father, the men are getting beat up. You need to do X, Y, Z. Ain't no excuse. You need to da-da-da-da-da. Not, hey, here's some affirmation or some encouragement about the guys who are doing what they're supposed to do. So that's a challenge. And so guys reject and rebel against what they feel like is kind of a repelling of them. Like, we don't want you here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right, Cornelius.
The last time I spoke on this, I got set in my church.
Okay, wow.
Some things get twisted up, when you're speaking, and what we have to learn is that this is happening in church all across America. Right. Right? It's just not in one certain church or a specific church. It's all around. But I have to go back until, let's look at how church was in the 80s, right? Okay. When I was coming up, I remember the church actually helping families. If the family was hungry, they bring food to the house. They had commodities that would come, and they would look out for the families. Today, it's more of the church embracing itself. Okay. And the homes are suffering, and men are already being put out by the system, by the government, and they're dealing with all these factors. And then when they go to church, all the church do is give me, and I don't have nothing to give. Okay. Right. So if we're basing church ministry on what we can get from the people and not basing it on what you can do for the people, then it creates a dilemma where you're only taking and you're not giving, and you're not building families. And I believe that families build communities. Communities build churches, right? So if you fix the problem with the family, you fix the problem with the church. And if you fix the problem with the church and the family, you fix the problem with the community, right? So we have a gap that has been created throughout the 80s and the now 2000s. Yeah. That has totally separated leaders and separated family and based it on just church, and it's just tearing us apart. Period. It's just breaking the family up. And churches are full of families, but an incomplete family is not a family, really. Right. Especially with that head. So
say that, please. Okay, so if that is the case, Cornelius, I'm gonna go with you, and then we'll shoot back to Chris. Why do you think that churches have detoured from the initial meaning or what the church was built for? Why have they gone astray?
Well, if you look at how, I got to go back to society. You look at how society has forced black men out of the home, and also black men also being locked up and not considered for jobs, and all the jobs being passed down to their women.
Okay.
So the money is being made mostly by the women, and the men are trying to survive and trying to compete with women who give. So they're being elected more in church, or they're being chosen to do certain things more. And we say that there's no male leaders, right? But the problem is that our women are being selected to lead above us, right? And whenever you put a woman above her husband, then you put her out of her place in God, right? So there was a thing in like in 93 or something when the Come As You Are, remember the Come As You Are thing? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. That totally made the church transition like the world, because now we can come and live how we want to. So since I'm above my husband or my man in the world, I can be above him in church because I'm coming as I am. I can dress how I want. I can look how I want. And that and those little things only open up the door to what we see today. It's just the transition of how it happened. And now men are less likely to lead because they're less confident. They're less chosen because me personally, I feel like I'm more controversial. So I have more of an opinion versus most people. So it's not really. I dropped a video about feminine energy. Yeah. And I feel like me not being such feminine or not allowing myself to just go along with what people say when they say something, it really makes it hard to. I feel like I'm going all over the place a little bit. I don't want to do that. It makes it feel like I don't want to be. I don't want to agree with. Or it makes it seem like I don't want to agree with a person when I'm only trying to reveal the truth.
Okay.
So it makes you controversial. That's why you call me Mr. Controversial, right? And that's just how I feel about that. And I really
and it's not controversial to me though, but the reason why I say that is because I know that it's controversial to other people. A lot of the stuff that you say, they're looking at you like, did he just really say that, like out loud on FB or in front of somebody? What's going on? So what about you, Chris? Because I can agree with everything Cornelius said. What do you think as far why have they gone so left? You know what I'm saying? If it was about the family and it was about giving to the family, what the church system was set up for, why is it now, hey, give me tithes, hey, give me your time, hey, give me this, hey, give me that, or whatever? And the people are sitting around like, doggone, like Cornelius said, if I'm a man, I ain't got that much to give. I'm already getting beat down in the world. I'm coming home. Now I'm coming to your church and you like, give me. And then when I don't give me, or if I choose not to go, then you're going to put my wife over me. And now it's this struggle of leadership. Now it's a battle between the men and the women. Like what the women are doing, the men are sitting at home, supposedly, or the men are sitting in the pews, supposedly, because they don't want to agree with the leadership, supposedly. So,
I think the challenge is it's got a couple of streams, right? A couple of tentacles. The first thing, first of all, it's not really a shortage of leadership. Okay. Because men are leading, they're just coaching little league teams. Okay. Right? Football, baseball. They're leading in other places. Okay. They're just not leading there. Right. Because it doesn't feel inviting for them. Okay. Right? Now again, when you come to church, you're coming to church to be ministered to. It's a hospital, right? I'm broken. I need some help in my area of brokenness, right? So the messaging is tailored for where you're broken. Here's some healing, and then take this with you. Keep applying it while you're at home, and then come back and get some more, right? So when he goes to church and he's not being ministered to, now the challenge is we're circling that back to, I'm broken. Okay, so now I was broken, whether it was in my childhood, whether it was on the job, whether it was in some of my brotherhood relationships or somewhere else. I have brokenness that I'm bringing to church, right? And I need somebody to speak to my brokenness. Okay, so if you give me an illustration that is more resonant with a woman's point of view than a man's point of view, I'll agree that that's truth, but it doesn't apply to me. I need something that applies to me. Or, hey, I'm a man. I've been given this mantle of leadership. It's heavy. Somebody help me, talk to me about how to do this better. Is it okay for me to be afraid? Is it okay for me to feel worn out? Is it okay for me to be weary? How do I deal with the weight of headship in my family? Okay. Or how do I deal with, like, I think one of the last time I was on this show, was talking about this meme that I saw that was incredible. And it says that the concept is true, but the meme said, we cannot raise our children how our parents raised us, because our parents raised us for a world that doesn't exist anymore, right? Because the world has changed. Now, there are some commonalities, some things are the same, but there are a lot of different dynamics that are different. So from the church's standpoint, what most pastors are trying to do is minister to the majority of who they see. Well, the majority of who they see
is women,
right? Because it's relational, and I'm ministering to your stuff, right? So if I want to talk to a man, I need to speak to men's brokenness. Bruh, here's, as a man, typically, because you said in the article that generally church leadership is male, right? So if I'm a man, I know what you're dealing with. I need to speak to your stuff. I need to speak to the weight that you feel on your shoulders and how you can carry that, and that you ain't by yourself. That Jesus literally said, come unto me, all you are weary and heavy laden, I will give you what? Rest. Right? You're trying to do it all by yourself. You're trying to carry all this load by yourself. He says, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Like, yo, there's hope. But he's out here dying because he doesn't have hope, and he doesn't see help anywhere. And he's, okay, so you tell me I can go to this place and get help and get hope, and I go here and all I get is more of the beat down than I just got out there. Okay. So I'm not, so, what's the difference? Why go here when I can just get beat out here? If I'm going to get beat down, let me, at least I know where it's coming from. Right. And so I think that a lot of ways, the hope, and I think what we can do to kind of curve this back in the direction it needs to go is to look at both genders, right? There are some unique needs that each have. There are some unique ways that women have been broken because of their experiences that we can speak to and that the Bible speaks to. And I think that if we look at how men are experiencing brokenness and speak to it, it will call them back. It will beckon them to come back, in my opinion.
I think, but I want to respond to something you said, because it's true that they need to heed to more what the men needs are also, but ain't no money in that, right? And ain't no money, ain't no finances in it. It's easier to feed to a woman's emotions. You know what I'm saying? Because if you can get into her emotions, you can get it open her wallet. Okay. Right. Men are less likely to open their wallet when you say give. Women are more likely to open their wallet when they're emotional. So the word is to get the woman to get emotional in order to distract them, not to distract him, but in order to pray. I don't want to say pray is such a tight word, but
that's harsh. That's harsh.
But in order to manipulate them out of their pockets.
Okay.
And the problem with that is that it leaves the leader,
the male in the house,
the man,
right,
in a state of vulnerability and aloneness. Okay. And a lack of respect, because now that woman, not only does our giving put her in a position over him, which is why look at elders, right? I'm gonna use this elder. Elder is a role that's reserved for a man. Okay. But we have a bunch of women elders. Okay. That should not be. But we have elders, women elders, and we have husbands at home who are not elders. Does that not put her in leadership over him? Right. Right? At church and at home. How can you be an elder and I'm not nothing, and I'm just a person? That automatically puts you in a position over me. You know what I'm saying? And you're not meant to lead me, even though, and I know this may sound male chauvinistic, but this is Bible. You know what I'm saying? And if we talking about spiritual matters, right? She should not be above me, especially when we're married. Even though the role is really for men, right? Elders and pastors, that's a man's role, right? Biblically sound. I can't think of the scripture right now, but it's there, right? So now
the husband of but one wife and all that, yeah.
Right. But now we have women not only leading above her husband, and at home he's at church, and some of these women like to assert that, and at church, and it's kind of belittling if you have your wife who's an elder trying to correct you in front of the whole church, or you know what I'm saying? It just don't feel good, and it's not meant to be that way because he's supposed to lead her. She's not supposed to lead him.
Right.
Well, and so here's a challenge. When we bring it all the way back, because you're right. Biblically, it said that it would be like that. When you look at Genesis chapter 3, it said that the curse was, right, you're going to work real hard, bruh, and be marginally productive. Thorns and thistles is what you're going to get back. It says that for her, your curse is you're going to desire your husband, but he will rule over you. So the challenge is, so when you break this thing all the way down, okay, so when he was made, he was formed. When she was made, she was built, right? So that means that she's got a lot of capacity. She's got a lot of skill set, broad, because the vision that God gave him was broad. So she's got a gang of skills. Then you look at the curse, her productivity was not hindered. Why? Because she was made to be an accomplisher, a helper, to facilitate the vision coming to pass. Yeah, God gave it to him. She's the help to make that happen, right? So here's the challenge, right? So the challenge is she's going to desire the place that she originally had prior to the hierarchy being established, right? Okay, so this drive that she has, it's going to drive her in a way that, for instance, because I think the article said that men are less likely to read their Bibles and less likely to do this and that and the other. The challenge is that our roles are different, right? So what we have to circle back is, okay, what is the vision that God gave the husband, and is that respected? You know how, I might not respect the person, but I respect the position. So the question is, okay, is there respect for the position? And if so, then there's going to be help and there's going to be support driving. Hey, you're the head, you're the leader, driving that thing, which is going to motivate him to do more of what God has called him to do. But I don't disagree with the fact that in churches, because they're 80% women or 70% women or 60% women, that you go with what you got. Okay. And because they're made to be accomplishers, that's generally what they're going to do. If you're trying to get something done, you typically go with the accomplishers. So what we see in churches right now is that, okay, you say, look, we have a fish fry that we're going to do on Friday. Volunteers, you go with the people who volunteer. So if you get 80% women and 20% men, you go with who comes to help.
Okay, so in saying that, do you break biblical principle to do that?
So
I
understand what you're saying.
Do you break biblical principle to do that?
You shouldn't.
You shouldn't. So therefore, it leads us back to the situation. So everything you said, it makes it null and void because she's out of position.
Yeah.
I think what we're doing is we are communicating what the reality is, and then why it is that way, right? Now the question is, and I think where we circle it back to the topic at hand, what do we do to fix that? What do we do to change the narrative, change the messaging?
Right, and we're going to talk about that later on because I know you guys are about to get real deep on me.
Right,
and so I respect everything both of you guys are saying. I'm going to take a brief commercial break, and then we're going to come back, and I have a couple of more articles for you guys and a couple of more questions. So we're doing good on time. We're about 8:30, so we should be able to get some more good nuggets in. I'm not going to do a whole lot of music, but here you guys go. And we're asking why men don't attend church. And so when we left off, both of the gentlemen were giving us some very, very good nuggets, right? And so here's another question, and then we'll circle back around that because we're at about 8:36, you guys. And so I found another article that was talking about the gender gap in religion around the world. And it said women are generally more religious than men, particularly among Christians. But it says that the gender gaps between Christian women and Christian men are more consistent than the Muslim gender gaps, right? It says that the article that I found, it said that more women are religious in the Christian community, but more men are religious in the Muslim community or even the Jewish community. And so what I want to ask is, why do we think there's a difference? Why is there a breakdown in Christianity as a believer where our women are all like, yeah, praise God, we up in the mix, we all in church, it's 90% of us and it's 10% of y'all, versus in the Muslim faith or the Jewish faith where we see more of the men leading and the women actually submitting as in biblical principles, which is what, Cornelius and you guys were speaking of. So why is there a difference? Why do you think?
Because I can say this here. If you look at all those religions that you just named outside of Christianity, all of them are submissive to their husbands.
Right. And I was going to say that. Yeah.
Look at every last one of them. That submission allows him to be confident, and he embraces it, and it makes him thrive.
Okay.
In the role of leadership, and it makes him want to pursue more.
Okay.
And there is no challenge for the throne.
Right. Okay.
Right. There's no battle tug of war for who's going to lead the house, right? So in that case, so since he is already known and he's the selected leader, then it transitions to the church where he's known and he's the selected leader, and she follows him and she trusts him and this is a hard word, but it's a biblical word. She obeys him because she trusts him. It's kind of hard for a woman to obey a man who she doesn't trust.
Right.
So she has to get that trust, but that trust only comes through her submission.
Okay.
And if she don't learn to trust him, then he'll never be able to level up and be the man that he's destined to be, because he needs her to build his confidence, and she needs her to make him feel like he has a place in this world. If she is constantly competing with him like the world is competing with him, then he's never in a position where I'm sure I got this. I'm sure that I can do this, because his own mate, who he's supposed to be taking care of and be the provider for, denies him or doubts him. So it's a tough position to be in.
We can go on a whole tangent on that one, but I think you hit on something, and I want to I'm gonna say two things here, but the submission component, right? So submission, if you break that thing down, it's submission, right? Subordinate to the mission. So then, what is the mission that we are submitting to? We're subordinate to the mission. The goal is the kingdom agenda, right? So you look at like 1 Corinthians 11, right? It talks about the head of every man is Christ and every woman is man, and then of course you break that thing all the way down, but what it's talking about is, what is the mission? We have to establish what is the mission, right? We are subordinate to the mission. Everything we do is about the mission, right? So I think that it's cloudy, right, in relationships, so that you have some of the issues where the hierarchical issues where who's leading and who's not. Like they say, division, a house divided against itself cannot stand, right? So division, that means die is two. Division, two visions, right? So if you have two visions, it's a two-headed monster. Of course it's not going to stand, right? So you have to have one mission. What is that mission? Here's what our purpose is. There's a difference between relationships and partnerships. Relationships are about relating to each other. Partnerships are about the goal. We come together to accomplish the goal. Whatever you got to sacrifice and whatever I got to sacrifice, it's all for this established goal. But if you don't establish the goal, then you got two different visions. I'm gonna go this way, and I'm gonna go that way, right? But I think in terms of circling back to what you said, with the different faith practices, right? Christianity, Muslim, Buddhist, and all that. I think the challenge is there's two differences. You mentioned the word religion, right? And I think that there are a lot of men who may not necessarily be religious, but they are spiritual. Like, all you got to do is go to a barbershop.
Okay.
You got brothers in there that ain't stepped foot in the church quoting, what they know about scripture. There's some stuff that some guys know. Guys know. Guys know, right? Most of them grew up and their grandmothers took them to church, and they went to church until they didn't have to go to church no more, right? So they know it. It's in there. Right. The challenge is, again, the key word you used was religion. Right. And I think that we get so caught up in the religious dynamic that we miss the relationship with Christ part. Right. It's the same issue that Jesus, when he came and he engaged back in his day, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they were all about this religious structure. He was like, man, listen, y'all got this thing all wrong. You're missing, like, okay, for instance, I know I'm circling back, but in Revelation chapter 2, it talks talks about the church of Ephesus, and it says that you guys are doing ministry in an excellent way. Y'all doing all the stuff y'all supposed to do. But the one thing you're missing, this one thing I have against you, is that you left your first love. Here's the thing. You can do great stuff, but if you miss the key ingredient, right, it makes it all pointless, because here's the main point, right? And I think in a lot of ways, again, the religiosity, a lot of guys, again, you go to barbershops, you go to basketball courts, you go to football games, right? You'll see they want it. If we go and we have a casual conversation, just sitting down and chopping it up with the fellas, and then we just tell them truth, we give them this relational truth, like, man, it ain't all what you thought it was, it ain't all that. Man, here's what this thing really boils down to. God loves you. And we take it from there. Right? If you understand that God loves you, then connecting with somebody who loves you is really easy. But if all I see is God is judging me, or God is breaking down, and that's all I see. Because, I mean, parents, we get on our kids for stuff that they do wrong, but our kids know we love them, though. If they miss, what's the phrase? Rules without relationship equals rebellion. If all I get is rules and no relationship, if I don't know you love me, it's going to be hard for me to do what you say and hard for me to follow you. So if I'm presenting this picture and all I get is you ain't no good, you ain't did this, you ain't did that, you're not measuring up, if that's all I feed you, ain't nobody going there, because it doesn't feel like there's no nourishment there. You got to balance it out. I mean, if all you do is beat your kids and tell them what they're doing wrong, and you never come and encourage them and tell them what they're doing right, and make sure that they know you love them, you lose your kids.
Right.
But so what happens when you never tell your kids that they're doing wrong?
No, well, I think that, again, I think you marry the two, because the Bible talks about you chasing those you love, right? I don't want you to get hit by a car, so when you step out in the street, when I told you to stop, I'm going to have to spank your butt or whatever I got to do to discipline you, so because I'm trying to protect your life, right? So there is some chastening, but I think but again, everything is done in love, right? So if I get on you, you're more likely to listen to me if you know that I love you.
Right.
At the end of the day.
Right.
Like, I'll listen, Daddy, you know what? I did mess up. Because, see, I'm coming from a place that at the end of the day, if I mess up and I got some discipline coming my way, well, I know my daddy, if I ever start to question whether you love me, then you're losing me. That's relationships in general. We're talking about from a parent standpoint.
Right.
But if you got spouses and they are sharpening one another, we'll just kind of use it that way. And it's starting to feel like it's more where I doubt or I question whether you're loving me. Mm-hmm. There's some challenge there. There's some disconnect. And I think that's where we got to get back to in terms of attracting men to church, to the body, right?
Well, listening to both of you all, it almost sounds like, now correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like the biblical teaching of the church, the present day church, some, not all. So I'm not going to generalize everybody, because like, when Corn and I were talking the other day, it's like a lot of churches that are speaking the truth, they might have 3 members, you know what I'm saying, on the real, because they speaking the truth, and we don't want to hear the truth. We want to hear what sounds good to my ear. I'm not trying to hear that, that I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this. And so what needs to happen with the ministers or the preachers, because what it sounds like is, if I'm preaching to my all female audience, which is all I have, like you said, so I'm going to go with the majority of what I see every Sunday. So I'm not out there trying to fish for men. I'm not out there doing any of that. And when men do come, all they hear is don't. You did. These women is trying to do this. These women is out doing y'all now, and all of this stuff. And there's no relationship with the pastor, the head of this establishment. Then you're going to continue to lose men, because they have no relationship with this pastor. So whatever you're telling me, you want me to respect you? You know what I'm saying? And it's really almost like, nigga, I don't even know you. Not for real. I don't know you. Why should I even listen to you? You know what I'm saying? Or you say, study to show yourself approved, and then when I'm studying to show myself approved, I get something different from what you get, but now I can't come back and talk to you about it. We can't discuss it. No, you do what I say, because I'm the head of this church, and if you do something different, then I'm finna sit you down.
Yeah.
So how how do you get rid of that part? Because, you know, like I was telling my husband when we were talking about it, I was like, okay, I'm trying to understand why Christianity, to me, now I don't know about a whole lot of other religions, it's the only religion to me, I'm a part of it, is that there's so many different dynamics within Christianity. So we're all sitting around like, okay, do we believe this church? What is it, this sector? Is it this sector? And then they say, well, study for yourself. Okay, I'm studying for myself, and it looks like in here it says this. Am I right? Am I wrong? Who's telling me? I don't know. So now I'm living my life according to what I feel. I feel like Jesus said this, and this is what I'm gonna go with. And what you talking about? So
check this out. We talk about religions, and you gotta notice that all these other religions, if you look at Muslims, they have laws.
Right.
Look at Jews, they have laws. Right.
Yes.
Even the earth itself has laws. Right. Mother Nature has laws.
Natural laws. Yeah.
Christianity, we don't have no laws. Now everything that God's created operates under laws, but Christians, right? So, which is to me is an oxymoron. Mm-hmm. It makes absolutely no sense. So we focus on the love of God, of the love of Christ, right? His sacrifice, right. Which is true. Everything about that is true. But we also take that Christ's love and his sacrifice, and remove his laws, right? So Chris was talking about how, you know what I'm saying, we should teach how that Christ loves me, right?
Right.
I think we got that. I think that message has been pushed to death, that Christ loves the world. For God so loved the world, John 3:16, right? We know that Christ loves us. Mm-hmm. The focus now is, how do we love Christ?
Okay.
Right? Now we don't know how to love God, and in return we don't have no relationship with God. Okay. The scripture says that if a man say he knows Christ, knows God, and don't keep his commandments, this is Christ that says this. That man is a liar. Mm-hmm. But if you look at the church today versus back then, you are being taught that in the church now you can't keep the commandments, or you know what I'm saying, the laws are done away with, or these other things that prevents men from living righteously, and you just focus on love because Christ wrote a new commandment that says love. Mm-hmm. Well, now it's time to see what Christ means by love. Exactly. And everything that Christ says about love refers us back to his laws and commandments. Right. If you look at the scripture,
if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. If you love me, you'll obey. If you love me, this is what it is.
You know what I'm saying? It's not just loving, because if we don't have nothing, if we don't follow that and follow what Christ says is law, which is his love, then we are left to assume what love is ourselves. Right. Right, so there is, and the problem with what you're saying out in church and the separation of us versus the other religions is that their foundation is still built off the word, and our foundation is built off our opinions. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So we have become an opinionated religion. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Instead of a biblical one.
And that's why it's broken off into so many different sectors.
That's why you can go. That's why in Christianity they got so many different. You got the apostolic, you got the Catholic Church, right? You know what I'm saying? You got the Baptist, full gospel. You got all these different
Lutheran, Wesleyan,
you know what I'm saying? Because everybody's so
Presbyterian,
everybody focused on doing their own thing instead of doing the biblical thing.
Right, and when you go there, the problems with those different denominations is when you go there, everyone feels like they are justified and right in their religious practices. So if I go to an apostolic church and I don't speak in tongues, then they're like, you not saved, girl. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't, huh? Or if I go somewhere else and I don't cover myself to pray, then, oh no, you can't be, what do you? So it's kind of like we're left and we're all over the place trying to figure this thing out. And these men are like, you know what? I don't want no part of this, because men are so simple. And I know that for a fact. Even though I'm not a man, I know men are simple. They just want, simple things out of life. And so it's like you said, if it's application, fundamental, what do I need to do? That's what I need. I don't need to feel nothing. What do I need to do? And then once I know what I need to do, then I'm going to go ahead and tell my wife and, let her get emotional for a little bit. But at the end of the day, I tell her, we carry out the vision up under me. Is that correct? Is that what you guys are?
Yeah, and I think some of the denominations, there's focus on particular things.
Yes.
And it's not that the thing that they're focusing on is not important. Mm-hmm. It's just a piece of the whole, right? Again, we have to circle back. We're not unaware of the enemy's schemes and his plots and his devices, right? Man. The goal is divide and conquer, and right?
He's divided
if I can get y'all all focusing on some other stuff instead of, because there's a reason why he said the greatest commandment, right, is love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and strength. And the second one is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. He said all the law and the prophets hang on these two. Mm-hmm. Everything comes from there. So if you we can get into specifics. But again, that's why when in the church at Ephesus in Revelation 2, he said, man, y'all doing everything great, but you're missing the love part. That's wonderful that you're doing all those things, and that's wonderful. You hate the people I hate, and you know you love the stuff I love, but you're missing this core principle, right? Mm-hmm. In 1 Cornelius chapter 11, it says, man, you can do all that stuff, but if you don't have love, you're like a clanging gong. Yeah, it's pointless, right? A clanging gong is like if I'm trying to get the troops to march, there's a certain way that I blow the trumpet. But if I blow the trumpet in a different way, they're not going to know to march. Right. So it has to be recognizable. The recognizable component in everything that makes us different is God's love flowing through us. And there are specific ways. There's ways that it happens. I gotta read y'all. Reverend Anderson is on a roll. And Charmaine are going back and forth. Okay. So Reverend Anderson says, women want to be loved, men want to be respected. Mm-hmm. The question is, as men, are we expecting women to blindly follow a man that is not leading in a responsible, godly fashion that garners the respect they desire? He also said there are resources that we all have access to aid in the study of the Bible. All scripture is profitable for teaching, rebuking, training in righteousness. As Christians, we don't live and operate based on the Old Testament law. We are now under the dispensation, and he loves to use big words. Grace, him and Chris, boy, y'all kill me. Dispensation of grace. Yeah. And then Pastor Rainey says there are literally many more laws in Scripture now than just the 10 we know in the Old Testament. Jesus came to fulfill those laws. We as Christians have many laws. And so we're going to go back to Cornelius saying that we are not teaching the laws in church, right? And like I was telling you, I'm like, I didn't even know there was more than 10 laws. I was going somewhere and somebody was like, hey, you know that there's like 100 and some law. I was like, huh? How many? Okay. Oh, okay. I didn't know, because they're not taught. They're not taught, right? And so if we're not teaching law to personally, I believe that it could be more men might come if you tell me, like I said, 1, 2, 3, 4, do this. Don't go based on how I feel, right? And so, if all these churches are done, you know, now we shouting and we're speaking in tongues and we falling all over the floor, and these men are like, can you give me something that I can do when I leave here? Can break it down for me so I know this, because that's the way y'all operate, correct? Right? Generally. And if they're not doing that, then I'm like, it's not appealing to me. It's not appetizing to me for me to go there, because I'm not really, all I'm doing is getting a feel good or whatever. And then I'm going to the house and we going through the same thing we was going through Monday through Saturday, because, you know, you haven't really told me anything at all. Yeah, I think we circle it back to there was a phrase that I think Josh McDowell mentioned this, but that circles back to rules without relationship equals rebellion, right? Mm-hmm. When you begin working for a company, the first thing that happens is the relationship is established. Okay. Then you learn the rules, right? Mm-hmm. It's the way it works, right? So before we even get into the dynamics of how you govern yourself while you're here, we first establish the relationship. Again, I think that's what we're missing. So brothers, they're building relationships over
outside,
here.
And not in the church.
I got to get you here, right? We got to get this relationship back in place, right? Again, when you look at families, right? We got to build the relationship. Then we can get into the hierarchy. We can get into all those dynamics. Okay. But if we don't establish that, you know, it's falling by the wayside. Because brother, we got to, again. So the attraction is not the rules. Okay. The attraction is God's love for him. That's it, right? We can get into the rules, and again, kids, when we are disciplined by our parents, but we know that we grow from their discipline. We grow, but we know they love us first.
Yeah.
Because most kids, if I think my parents don't love me and all they do is beat me, I'm running away from home.
Right.
Real talk, and so that's how we lose, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, but saying that, the blessings, a man's blessings is tied to his obedience.
Okay.
Sure.
It's tied to his obedience to God's will. And what is God's will? God's will is for us to keep his commandments. Right?
Right. Okay.
So when they say, what is the will of God, right? My will for you is to keep my commandments. Every time someone asks about salvation, even with Christ never led them away from the law. Not once. Even though he said my grace is sufficient, he always recommended every person that sinned back to the law.
Yeah.
He never once said that, the commandments are done away with. He never said that, like Reverend Anderson was saying, the dispensation of grace, right? But what is the dispensation of grace? You know what I'm saying? Does that terminate the law? Is that what he's saying? Because the dispensation of grace does not terminate the law.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just grace. That's given to us, something that we didn't have automatically when we were under the law. So grace is the fulfillment of the law.
Right.
To fulfill the law is grace. It's not just they're gone.
So the dispensation, let's break that thing down, right? So this dispensing of grace, right? So he says, should I keep sinning because grace abounds? Of course, Paul was like, surely you should never do that. But the reality is this sanctification process, being conformed to the likeness of his son. Again, I can't clean the fish unless I catch him. I can't clean him before I catch him. Got to catch him first, right? So the overarching topic of tonight's radio show is men getting back in church. How do we get them connected to the body? Not even necessarily the building, right? But the body. What is that? How do we do that, right?
And we're going to have a part 2, you guys, because it is already 8:59. Yeah, go ahead.
Respond?
Yeah.
I feel a little different than that.
Sure.
I feel like it's the problem is getting men back into a relationship with God. You know what I'm saying? The church is an important factor, but it's not the most important factor because the church don't save you. You know
It's
what I'm saying?
Jesus. It's Jesus, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's relationship.
The body
you know
of
what I'm
Christ,
saying? So if you fix man relationship with God, then you fix man relationship with the church.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? We're struggling. We're not struggling because of what the church done. I want to be correct. We're struggling from a lack of truth.
Okay.
And right now we're being taught grace, but we're not being taught responsibility.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
So until we're actually taught, okay, I understand grace, but how do I operate under grace?
Yeah.
Then we're going to be lost, and we're going to separate ourselves further from God.
Okay.
So
Instead of, and so you guys, we're gonna have to have a part 2. And what I would love to do is, because these gentlemen are still here, we might end up going live somewhere else because I got to get out of the studio. But we might end up going live and continuing the conversation because it's really, really good. I see Reverend Anderson responding, and like I said, this conversation is very much needed. So I saw a couple of things online, and I know it's 9:00. We're gonna get out of here. But so some of the possible solutions, it was saying that that there might need to be a shift in the kind of worship music used in the church that might make men feel more welcome. We don't know. It said also men's ministry. Another possible cause for gender gap in America's church lies in the shortage of men's ministries, ministering to the man, which is something I think Chris hit on as far as having the relationship with the man. And then the other one is, it says redesign. Some churches like 121 Community Church are making a drastic move and are redesigning their worship spaces and websites as a part of an initiative to bring men back to church. They're saying about their interiors are more rugged or lodge-like or something like that. That's catering more to a masculine audience versus a female audience as far as the look and everything like that. Okay. And so that's some of the solutions, but like I said, if these gentlemen want to, we're going to take this to the streets, and we're going to continue to go live on Facebook, you guys, so you guys can kind of talk back and forth with us. Remember, if we don't share, then how can we help? Let's root for each other and help each other grow. Good night, and stay tuned, because I'm going to try and get these gentlemen to stay around so we can continue this conversation.
Hey, it's your girl, Talitha Kume. Catch our show
show, Food for the Soul, presents The Gumbo Mix every Thursday from 9 p.m. to 10 o'clock p.m.